Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Welcome back to Pickles and Vodka, a mental health podcast. I'm Christina.
And I'm Lauren.
I didn't think this would be so hard. I mean, I did, but it's never any easier to talk about this. We're here today to talk about a past guest that we've mentioned before who passed away in January. We talked about it a little on our Gently Falling Apart episode, but it's been a few months now since her death, and we wanted to make an episode where we remembered her and I guess, talked about it.
Yeah, and for one thing, I think one of the best ways we felt to do that, because she had been a guest, is at the end we're going to re-release her full episode. So you just get a feeling for who this person was. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, her name was Dawn. In the episode, she was anonymous, but I reached out to one of her close friends and asked if it would be okay to share just her first name. And she said yes. I guess to start out, I really want to give listeners an idea of the kind of person she was and how her death affected us. We won't spend too much time talking about that. Again, the focus should be on her today, not us. But like we said in that past episode, it kind of shattered us and really affected me personally with my mental health and made me think about a lot of things. So we're going to share some thoughts and then we're going to play some voice notes from people who knew her before finally playing the original episode she was in that aired September 14th, 2020, which is wild.
Yeah.
Everything was so different then. Yeah, it's not easy to be here. We were just saying off mic that we keep putting this off because, I don't know, for me personally, I keep thinking, I want to say just the right thing.
Yeah.
But there's nothing right about this situation, and nothing we say will make it any easier.
Yeah, I feel like after every episode probably, then I think of ways that I could have done something better or said something better or made the point better. But, just in a situation like this, that feels extra important. So there is just that pressure to do somebody's memory proper service.
Yeah. I have never lost a friend before this to mental illness specifically, and you have.
Yeah.
And you were the one that told me that she died, as we've talked about. But yeah, like I said, I hadn't talked to her for about a year prior to that, and I know that you were kind of the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she had been going through, on the platform where we knew her, then I felt like she had been kind of in and out because she'd had a lot of emergencies and things going on in her life that took her away. So, I didn't get to interact with her as much.
Yeah. So when she was on this podcast in 2020, she was talking about growing up with a single dad and a sister, and how her early childhood trauma led to an eating disorder and a lot of issues with self-confidence and self-worth.
I'm sorry, I don't have much to add because I haven't actually listened to the episode yet. I kind of wanted to after all of this. I should say I have recently listened to this episode and Lauren has not. And so, Lauren, you're kind of in the position of the listener if they haven't heard that episode before, because you're planning on listening to it when we release this. As it comes out, yeah. I guess the only reason I bring it up is because what I remember most about Dawn from that time was just her great attitude and her sense of humor during what was truly a batshit crazy time in everyone's lives. Yeah, we said it was September 2020. Think what you were doing then.
Well, and I know that the social media platform where we all met, we were all a pretty tight-knit group during 2020 because, like a lot of people, we turned to online spaces to fulfill that need to connect. And do you remember House Party?
I do. I never got to join with that group. So that's who introduced it to me.
House Party was kind of, I don't even know if it's still around. It was like a third-party calling system, like Zoom, but you could also play games with participants. So during COVID, a bunch of us from this site started using House Party to host little gatherings. And the reason I bring it all up is because Dawn was one of the first people who would go to these house parties. And I just remember being so happy that she was there because it instantly was no longer awkward. Or like she made it awkward on purpose, like to make it less awkward. That was her thing.
Yes, I would say when I think of her, that's true. That's something that I always think of. Is she was not afraid to say the awkward thing and just kind of put it in the middle and watch everybody like, hey guys, deal with that. I just said it.
Yeah, I think she was also the first person from that community that video messaged me on Instagram, which at the time I was like, oh my God, this is scary. Who the fuck is this? But yeah, I loved that about her. She was just so warm and made you feel good about yourself when you were around her. And I didn't even meet her in person, Yeah,
neither of us did.
Yeah. What about you? When did you meet her?
It was probably, near the beginning of my time on Peach, because I always remember her being there. I would say the first thing that stuck out to me is, big surprise, her fabulous makeup and style.
Yes. Oh my God. Just a stunner of a person.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would just wait for, like pictures when I knew she was going out. Like, oh, what are these going to look like? And how am I going to want to copy your beautiful makeup looks?
Yeah, I know that when people pass away, that's the first thing you hear is like, oh, they were so beautiful. But Dawn really was like one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen. And it's because she didn't like flaunt it, she was just, like I said, a truly awkward person. I think one of the voicemails that we're about to play mentions her being really weird. Like she was a really weird, awkward person. And also like one of the most beautiful people I've ever met. And in the episode she was on, she talked a lot about her facial dysmorphia, just the issues she had with her face.
Yeah.
And it always made me so sad.
Me too.
Do you want to talk about the day that you found out that she died?
Yeah, because that's just such a whirlwind of feelings. I don't even know how to pinpoint because like you pointed out, I mean, to some degree, there was just kind of like, I've been through this before. I've seen this happen like in a close community like this. So it was kind of, like reliving things. And there was, of course, I mean, the very first post I saw, from her really good friend, Jill, who we'll hear from later, just like informing us so we knew, then it was just kind of like you first read over it and you're like, I didn't just read what I thought I read, right? Yeah. And then it's like, oh my God, I did.
What was your immediate reaction? Like, what did you do? Who did you talk to?
Well, I was at work, so I just, tried to keep working and not invite people at work to talk to me. Where you kind of just sort of like do your thing and just sort of put the vibes out there. Like, I'm not in the mood to talk and be friendly right now. I'm just trying to get through today. And, I let you know right away because I knew that you weren't around at that time and that you definitely wouldn't want to return and find out like, oh, this happened a month ago and surprise. Yeah. Try to think, of anybody else in that situation that might need to know. And mostly I just felt really like we talked about what kind of person she was and what I knew of her, but I'd never had any of those, even those connections like you had. I mean, I just read her stuff and we commented occasionally and things like that. And I saw a lot of her interactions. So I think my first feeling was just like sad that I missed out.
Yeah.
Because it was just kind of like, I feel like we could have gotten along better on so many things if we'd had the chance to connect. And it's just like, and we won't.
Well, here's the thing about her. She was very authentic online. she would go online and just make a bunch of posts about how she was feeling and what she was going through. And then she would get embarrassed or feel unsafe and delete everything and disappear and maybe come back with a different username. In the interview that I did with her, she says on multiple occasions that she's too intense. And I made note of that because, of course, I didn't see her as too intense at all. I mean, as you know, when anyone is in a crisis, it is intense. And when people have mental health struggles, it can be intense. And the people in your life aren't going to be able to show up for you all the time, but you got to give them a chance. And it makes me so sad that she thought that she had to keep people from sharing her pain. And like you said, I had been off of that site for a while when you texted me about her death. And when I logged on, I saw that I had a friend request from her new username. She had deleted her account and then come back as a new username and friended me, and I wasn't on to accept it. So that was weird.
Yeah, I bet.
But yeah, I got to go through her posts from the last month of her life and just unspeakably awful shit that she was going through. She was in an abusive relationship. I know she was looking for a job and trying to figure out healthcare stuff. She also struggled with insomnia.
I mean, understandable with all she was dealing with.
Yeah, so, you know, she was drinking a lot and using, you know, mixing it with substances. And the only reason I mentioned that is because, like, I was doing the same thing at the time.
Right.
And so it's impossible to ignore the parallels. And I hate that she felt so alone. And I hate that ultimately it was too much or just bad luck, you know?
Yeah, because that's kind of, you know, with other people that have passed too soon like that in my life, it's been a sort of similar thing. And that's what I realized when I said I sort of had the regret too, is that you see these people go through these things and they come through the mess a few times, and it's almost like it starts to give you this false sense of security that it's just kind of like, okay, but you're going to come through this, you know.
Yeah.
If we see you doing something dangerous, then I'm worried for you, but you still just kind of like don't feel like this is how it's going to end up.
Well, yeah, none of us want to think about that. And that's a sad reality of all of the people that have been on this podcast. There's a good chance that not all of them will make it.
Yeah.
And that includes us. Like, I try not to take my health for granted. And I think it's easy sometimes to have like an immortality complex. Some of it is just a coping mechanism. You don't want to think about what you're doing to yourself. So yeah, when someone in our circle who has had crises before and always pulled through is going through another crisis, you never think that this will be the final crisis.
Yeah, you're still like hopeful for them, that it's just kind of like, I know you're having a hard time right now, but I can see a better future for you. And you think that, or you hope that that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
And in the end, it is sometimes just bad luck, you know, like.
I mean, I keep thinking about, for anybody that's seen The Good Place, when Eleanor is describing, the main character is describing to one of the other characters who's kind of being confronted with mortality for the first time, where she's just like, the reason we're not all like this is because, you know, all humans just know in the back of their mind that life is finite. And that means, like, no matter what, we're all a little sad. So I feel like you're all aware, but you can't just sit there and think about how, like, this is all going to end. So you do kind of push it out of your mind. And it's just like, oh, okay, but we're going to ignore that for now.
And that's one thing about Dawn, is that she didn't ignore it. She was, you know, honest about her struggles, but also she didn't just want to accept her fate and sit in her misery, I think is how she puts it in the interview. She was trying it so fucking hard.
Yeah, in no way was her just saying, I'm giving up.
No. And that's the heartbreaking thing. She really was making strides forward.
Yeah.
Things were looking up.
Did you want to talk about attending the funeral a little?
Yeah, so her funeral was in a state about 6 hours from where I live. A lot of community members were planning on attending. And these are all people that, in many cases, had not met in person before. Coming from all over the country for this funeral. And so I can't think of how to describe it because it was so surreal and devastating, but it was also like one of the most beautiful experiences of connection that I've had in a long time. Because, I mean, it was just a testament to the kind of person she was and also the kind of community that she was a huge part of. Because, like, these are people that I hadn't met either, and they're offering me, rides and help with hotel rooms. And like, that people were offering people places to sleep. And it was just everyone coming together. And it was honestly like chilling at times.
Yeah, I could see that.
The actual funeral was at night and we walk in and it's just full of people, just like packed. You start like walking around the perimeter of the room and all of Dawn's artwork had been displayed, as well as like her gaming headphones were there. She was a gamer, a bunch of childhood pictures and art projects from when she was a kid. It was just, that's when it really, really hit me and I just started breaking down. It just made it so real.
That's what I was thinking as you were describing it. Like, meeting a person, as an adult, and you're both continually going through your own, like, adult-type crises, and then I can understand, like, to see, like you said, childhood pictures, and being like, oh, you lived this whole life, though, and I didn't really know about it.
Yeah, well, that shouldn't have been the first time that I was meeting her, Like, that shouldn't have been the first time. It's like you said at the beginning, you felt like you missed out on her. We all did, Yeah. She was only 28 when she died. She had so much taken from her. I've gone through a lot of feelings about it, anger and helplessness and all that stuff. But the main feeling I had when I was there at the funeral was just awe at what a rich life that she had. And just, like I said, so many people from so many different kinds of people. Like, you had our weird internet group, and then you had like her family and coworkers were there, and gaming friends and soccer friends. She played soccer, like just friends from all different parts of her life coming together, and it was really beautiful. And also just, she was missing. Like, she should have been there with everybody.
It really like proves the sort of person I think that you are when, you can be part of all these different communities and activities and things. And this group, from everything that you were part of, like, you clearly affected them as a whole, and they're all coming together for the same thing.
And she cared so much about her relationships. Like, that much was obvious. She really went above and beyond for her friends and was just a light. I can't think of any other word in this moment.
She was a presence.
Yeah.
And yeah.
She was a presence.
And that's probably why so many people felt affected.
Yeah. And at the same time, they were all there because they loved her, but many of them didn't know the depths of what she struggled with. And I was thinking about that a lot, how alone she felt when she was alive and the vast hurdles she had to face alone.
I think it's not uncommon is the thing. It wouldn't be the first person who is clearly so warm and such a light to people, but they're not aware of it. And you can't stop a person going through things like that from not feeling alone, unfortunately.
Yeah.
When you're the person in that position, you can't always see and feel the people that are there for you. And, I don't know what else to say about that, because there's nothing that can be done. I'm not saying, like she did anything wrong or people like that are taking things for granted or nothing like that. It's just more like sometimes we're just not capable of seeing it, unfortunately. And that means you still find yourself feeling lonely like that.
Yeah. It's a common response to think that maybe you could have done something or been there more or said something to help. But the thing that has helped me the most through all this is just, I'm trying to articulate this. It's really made me want to reach out to people more and not give up on getting help for myself.
Yeah.
I almost feel like it's the least I can do for her and for myself. She would want everyone to ask for help and receive help. Again, not to make it about me, but I feel like she kind of saved my life in that way.
I feel like what we're doing right now is kind of trying to find the perfect way to wrap it up and to, lead into the next part. And
yeah,
that's kind of was our point from the beginning, is just, life is messy and you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, you really don't. But we can remember the good times and the people that we've lost and keep their memory alive, which is what we wanted to do today in our own little meaningless way.
Yeah.
So before we play her original interview from 2020, we're going to be playing a couple of voice messages sent in by people who knew her. We got one message that was written. Lauren is going to read that, and then we'll play the voice messages.
Yeah, so this was from a friend. First of all, I have to say that Dawn was one of the most hilarious people I knew. We had the same sense of humor and said the dumbest, most unserious shit to each other. But when I remember her energy, beneath the humor, at her core, was the kindest, most genuine soul. Dawn was the kind of person you could tell absolutely anything. The bad choice you made, the unhinged thought you had, the dream you were afraid of, and she would just listen, without judgment, without inserting herself, without criticism or unwelcome advice. And each time, she would so earnestly ask, "How did that make you feel?" I love hearing how my friends feel and learning about their inner worlds. And I try to always give them a safe space to express themselves. But it's still hard for me to express how I'm feeling. I try to be honest, but there's usually still a level of censorship there. A fear of being vulnerable and seen, potentially judged or guided in some unwanted direction. Dawn made it so much easier to share my real self, and I'm forever grateful to her for that. When something happened in my life and I just felt like I had to tell someone, it was usually Dawn. I knew she'd always be supportive and empathetic, happy with me, sad with me. Or if it was a less than stellar situation, we'd laugh hysterically at how fucked up things were. I think that's one of the main reasons we connected immediately. We were coming from the same place. We were both determined to never treat others the way that we had been treated in our pasts. We were determined to create a safe space for each other to be vulnerable, straightforward, and genuine. And we did it. In the 7 or so years we knew each other, and through many fucked up situations, I don't think either of us spoke a single unkind word to the other. There was only unconditional love and support, and it was effortless. I truly cherished the friend she was, and I tried to model her example in my other friendships because I would love for every single one of them to have a friend like Dawn.
Oh, man.
I know, that last sentence, I'm like, that really says it.
She really did make a community, like, with everybody she met.
Mm-hmm.
And, thank you to the person who wrote that. We're going to play the voice messages now, and then we're going to play the original interview with Dawn in 2020. I hope everyone stays safe this week, and we love you.
I met Dawn via online years ago in 2016, and she's just one of those people, you know, one of those people that was the sun and fuck, Jesus Christ. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna try to get through this. Dawn was one of those people who you gravitated towards. And we became friends in 2016 during a really bad part of my existence, human-wise. And she was there to laugh at my stupid memes and my jokes, and she was one of the most beautiful people I know, inside or out. And the world is a darker place without her. I just really loved her and will really miss her for the rest of my life, I think. Like, fuck, man.
Dawn is a person who's hard to describe in words. She would be best captured through a series of memes, but I'll do my best. Dawn and I became friends somewhere around 2016 or 2017. We actually met online, then realized we had mutual Facebook friends, and grew up about 15 minutes away from each other. We both lost our moms when we were young, and after several years of Dawn telling me about her mysterious, mature older sister, we discovered said sister is literally 5 days older than me. Dawn and I became fast friends and grew very close over the years. I had the honor of having her stand beside me as my bridesmaid when I got married last fall. Dawn was a friend that would bring laughter to the worst moments, oftentimes with her sick, dark sense of humor. Dawn's dad passed away in early 2021 after she recorded the interview you will be listening to. My now husband and I went to visit Dawn and her then boyfriend to check in a day or two later, which of course turned into Dawn and I flipping through a catalog of urns, laughing our asses off at the astounding number of options, including selections that looked like Grandma's cookie jar. All of this went on while our partners, normies with living parents, looked on in horror. But Dawn always found some sliver of humor in tragedy. My dad died a little over a year after hers, and it really did help having someone to make Orphan Annie jokes with. Dawn was also a true artist. She studied visual arts in college and created some really amazing paintings and drawings. She was a very talented, self-taught makeup artist, to the point that her makeup obsession kind of became a running joke. When I said Dawn brought humor to dark moments, I forgot to mention that she also brought flawless makeup with her. We'd meet for drinks, with me showing up in leggings and a sweatshirt, rocking a messy bun, and Dawn would show up in a cute outfit with perfect makeup every single time, without fail. Though put together on the outside, Dawn was just flat out weird on the inside. She was surprisingly athletic and broke her high school sit-up record not once, but twice. She played soccer through high school and later joined a recreational soccer league as an adult, where she was often awarded MVP by her teammates. She was extremely passionate about her guinea pig and hamster pets / children, and she also enjoyed gaming and discovering new music. Dawn was a uniquely warm and empathetic person, and she was a friend who was always in your corner. It really was impossible not to like her, and it was a privilege to be Dawn's friend, and she's really so missed by all.
Okay, it's recording!
Yay!
We're good! Oh my fucking god.
Like the audio is recording.
Yeah, the audio is recording, for sure. Okay.
Cool.
This is insane. So, for those who don't know, we tried recording, a week ago?
Yeah.
And we got through a whole hour of great conversation, and then I was using Zoom, which I don't normally use, and little did I know that it was recording me, but not you.
Yep. Wait, so you only had the one side?
Yeah, I literally just had my own voice going like, oh man, cool. And it was the most obnoxious thing I've ever heard in my life. It was really sad. I was too sad to even be upset. I just closed my laptop and I was like, okay, cool.
God damn it.
Oh my god. How are you doing today?
It's a little bit of a rough day. A little bit.
Oh no.
I started out okay, but you know how our brains do.
Oh, do I ever?
Yeah, how are you doing?
Same. I had a rough day yesterday. Today I've just kind of been trying to stay positive and get back on track, but it's hard.
For real. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm keeping myself in check. I'm okay, can feel the spiral coming, but we're not doing that today.
Yeah.
So
it's I keep telling myself, you don't have the option to spiral, you dumb bitch. Don't do it.
Exactly. See, my impulse too was to stay inside tonight and just sleep. But one of my friends asked me, he's having a bonfire. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go. I'll commit to going for at least an hour. Like, I'm going to be social. So that's the plan.
Nice.
It's the game plan. Yeah.
I believe in you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you already did this for the last interview, but would you mind saying who you are? You don't have to say your name or anything. I know you want it to be anonymous, but how old are you and where do you live? And what's your mental health history?
I am 25. I'm living in Jersey. My mental health history, oh boy.
Well, I know last time we started with childhood, and I feel like we kind of breezed by some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So in terms of like mental health, like diagnoses and stuff like that, I'm dealing with like depression, anxiety, and an eating disorder predominantly. So last time I know we talked, it was I think we were talking about my whole situation with my dad and how I'm like low contact with him. And
yeah.
Basically, I grew up with just me and my sister and my dad. My mom passed when I was a little baby. And my sister and I were never really that close. And I was always the very sensitive one who felt everything in the family. And my dad would often like mock me and like be like, stop being this way. And as a kid, that makes you feel real bad.
Yeah.
But he, was always a very sick man, both mentally and physically. And it's hard growing up that way, having one parent who's that ill and doesn't want to take care of themselves too. And like that being the norm, as a kid is just confusing.
Are you the older sister or the younger sister?
I'm the youngest.
Did you find yourself having to step into the role of caretaker a lot of times, or did your sister do that?
So because my sister was older, it was almost put on her, which I feel so bad about as an adult, especially. I think about it a lot. How growing up, I was the one dealing with more emotional problems, but more under wraps. Like I wasn't as forward as I am now about it. And my sister always was very poker faced and able to just put on that poker face and just get what had to be done and take care of, everyone else. And I can't imagine being in that role like as the older sister. And I stepped up more when I was maybe like high school, maybe more towards the end of high school. But for a while, it was mostly on her.
Does she have mental health issues herself?
I can imagine. I want to say we're a lot more similar, and especially now that I've been connecting with her and as an adult, I want to say we're a lot more similar than I thought we were. I always thought we were such different people. We, the way we present ourselves, the way we communicate, she's just kind of not, I don't want to say standoffish because it comes with such like a negative connotation, but like, you know what I mean? She's
stoic.
Yeah, she's stoic. But I think, I can imagine based on all the trauma that we've gone through together, there's a lot more similarities with us. And which is, nice now as adults, like we can talk about things a little bit easier, and she is opening up to me more, which is like really nice. Because also, with my dad being as ill as he would do this really twisted thing where he would like try to pin us against each other and like lie to one of us, and then the other would, have to find out, or he would be like, okay, let me tell my sister something, and then, but you can't tell her though.
Oh my God.
So we were always, and I would always go back and forth.
What was that like talking to her later and comparing notes and being like, holy shit, this was happening?
No, as adults now, like, we know how bad it is. So now whatever I know, I'm like, hey, just so you know, Dad told me this. And she's like, I didn't know that actually. Thanks for letting me know. Like, because we're not taking that bullshit anymore. There's no point. But also just a little bit more backstory. So my mom passed from colon cancer. I was 2.5, turning 3. And my dad stopped taking care of himself, gave up. He would talk to his, children about this, especially me, because he knew I was the more sensitive one, and my sister would not talk to him about anything, and I would. And he would kind of abuse that side of me too. Like he would just unload all of this really heavy stuff on me, who I was, in elementary, middle school, just telling me all these really, really heavy things that I'm not prepared for and not capable of.
Of course not. Your brain isn't developed yet, and it's your dad.
No. You're only parent, like talking about, how he thought about taking his life, and makes you think, is he still thinking that? So yeah, he's just been that way for so long, and it, messed me up as a kid because I'm always just on edge and I don't want to trigger him, and he was always just so freaking angry. But yeah, no, as adults now, my sister and I are practically, staying low contact with him. In the past few weeks of doing this, there have been ebbs and flows of like us being low contact with him, but in the past few weeks of doing this, I've felt a lot more confident. I felt like I can think, I can take care of myself, I can do things that I want, which is really nice. And I'm sure my sister has felt that way too, because it's just such and it's going to sound really selfish saying this, but like, he's just such like a leech.
Yeah.
Like, there's a subreddit actually, which people should totally check out if you hear any similarities with my situation. It's the subreddits are raised by narcissists. It's really, really validating. When I first discovered it, I was like, holy crap, like, I'm not crazy. This is really how people live. People have grown up with these narcissistic parents and ended up with similar mental illnesses or, triggers or whatever.
So as a kid, did you feel different, like set apart from your peers? Like, how did your mental illness start manifesting itself?
I started having suicidal thoughts when I was like really young, like elementary school. Like, it started loud too, and it was always a part of my life, and I thought it was normal for a while. I was like, okay, all kids kind of deal with this, but like, as that continues, it's like how it severely impacts your life. And I became super, I was really a perfectionist and like wanted to get the best grades and play soccer, even though I still am not sure to this day if that's something I genuinely like or if that's just something I'm good at. I wanted to do things that would make people approve of me, and like my dad, approve of me, or like, and it developed into an eating disorder, practically that way of thinking, when I was in college. Not till college, is when the eating disorder decided to show its ugly face. Yep. But I remember last time when we recorded, I talked about how I talked to my dad one day when I was like, I think I was like 9th or 10th grade. And I told him like I was, really struggling with suicidal thoughts. Like, I didn't know. It was at the point where like, okay, I'm not sure if I can keep myself safe, but like, I don't want to be dramatic. I'm not sure where on the realm of like normal this is. So I sat down with him and I was like, hey, like, I think I might be dealing with depression. And his answer was, no, you're not. You don't know what depression is. And like,
that's so beyond fucked up. Yeah. Well, one of the questions I normally ask people on here is like, how is mental illness talked about in your family? But with you, it's a special case because you know about suicidal thoughts because your dad is unloading all of his on you, but you don't have that healthy space to talk about it for yourself. And when you try, shit like that happens. So like,
exactly.
That's messed up.
It's so messed up. And it just makes you like, I had no idea what was normal and what I should be feeling or what I shouldn't be feeling. And, and everything that I thought was legit in my brain, like my dad was like, no. Like, okay, don't. So I just kept like, this sounds so cliche and almost cringy, but like living a lie. Like, you just form, like, you make this personality for yourself. You create interests for yourself that will gain approval. And that's your only way of surviving almost. Yeah. I mean, for me at least, that's how I felt.
No, I know a lot of people who have that in common with you. I mean, it goes all the way from, like, it's not always so extreme with some people, just like, changing your personality when you're with a different friend group, for instance. Like, we all do it to some extent, but I think it can cross over from, like, just a social thing you do to, like, a survival strategy. And I think that's what you experienced from the sounds of it.
Exactly. And I think that's why, my eating disorder even developed, is like, because I had, like, I was just so rigid in like who I, wanted to be or needed to be. And like, it just, that perfectionist mindset will just, like, for me, it just manifested in numbers and counting. And it started a little bit with body image, but like, it still has to do with body image to some extent. But like, it's more about like intake and numbers and counting and having to consume a certain amount. And it's just an exhausting way to live.
So you said the eating disorder developed when you went to college. So when you left the house, what were you trying to discover? Like you said you didn't really have a sense of reality or who you were. Like what kind of questions were going through your head when you left your family?
I kind of like, I don't want to say went off the rails, but like I was like, I got to college and I, made friends who I connected with on a whole different level. And like, I started feeling more genuine, but like, I still had that underlying like stress and anxiety and depression that had been building up for all those years. And I feel like because I could start expressing it more, like it just all came out. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't talk about it and and then I had friends who were validating me and wanted me to talk about it with them. And I kind of just became like probably way too intense about it. And that's when I started seeking therapy. I was in therapy at one point when I was a kid. But my dad found out because my nanny I had a nanny growing up. She was the one who like noticed, okay, like she should probably be in therapy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I didn't even verbalize it really to her. She could just tell like I was suffering, like there's something wrong. And my dad found out and he pulled me out of it. So,
oh my God. What was his reasoning? That you don't know what depression is? Like you don't.
Oh, okay. So I can tell you, the story of what really triggered him to pull me out. It was really twisted. So this will hit you too. I know it will. It's really sad. But so I had 2 cats growing up. I had 2 cats. Loved them so much with all my heart. And they had a habit of pissing all over the house. And they, my dad would blame me and my sister and be like, you guys aren't cleaning the litter box. Like, we were like, no, like, so we would be like neurotic about it, make sure it's clean at all times. Yeah. They still peed all over the house. It's just, how cats are.
Yeah.
So my dad would like, what I learned in therapy was he might have been going into what's called like diabetic rages. If his blood sugar's out of whack, like it can really like come out as anger and frustration, and it'll be unwarranted oftentimes. So he would scream, get red face, like get in your face, and it was scary as a kid.
Yeah.
So he freaked out about it one day, and it really, scared me and my sister because he actually put the cats into a crate and put them in the car and started driving away and was saying he was putting them to sleep.
Holy shit.
Because of me and my sister not.
Oh my God.
Imagine how upsetting that is when you're a child.
I can't. Even imagining it now, I'm getting upset.
I know. It's a heavy story, but so that was, and my grandpa was the one who like stopped him eventually, and he was like, I'd forget if he followed him or if he called him or what happened, but my dad eventually came back. So that was really traumatizing, and I had to have been in like 4th grade at that point. And so my dad's blaming us, like, potentially for almost killing my cats because we didn't clean the litter box and they're peeing everywhere. So if that actually followed through, like, holy shit.
Oh, my God.
But so I told my therapist at school because I was shaken up for weeks about it. And she ended up contacting my dad, which I don't know why she did that because I don't think that was legit enough in terms of being a licensed professional to confront.
Like don't they have rules of confidentiality or whatever?
Yeah, not sure where that lies on it, if that's threatening enough. So she contacted him, and my dad found out and pulled me out of therapy, and that was the end of that. So,
and how old were you the next time you were in therapy?
Not until college.
That's crazy.
Ironically, too, he was the one who wanted me to go to therapy, and he was pushing me to do it in college. I'm like, I could use this, It's just a whole twisted dynamic. So yeah, then, since then I obviously took a giant hiatus from going to therapy, and then went back when I was, early college, and met the most wonderful therapist in my life. One of the kindest people I know, and like she, getting emotional thinking about it.
Oh.
But like she basically, like, if I didn't see her, I would have been like a completely different person.
Wow. Is that...
Let me collect my...
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, I have a therapist like that too, or I had to stop seeing him for like distance, I guess, which is ironic because now everything is teletherapy.
Yeah.
But I wrote him a letter. And he responded. Mm-hmm. He was just like, "We've closed your file. Also, thank you."
I was like, yeah, like therapists can do so much. Like, it's just, it's hard to find the right one, but if you do, it's just priceless. Like, it's the number one thing you can do for your mental health. And I tell everyone who has had a bad therapist or feels like they'll never be able to find one, like, just keep going because it's so important. Like, I can't even express how important it is. And I'm guilty of taking breaks myself. Like, I'm just coming back from a very long break from therapy, and sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm making any progress, but like, when I talk to friends about it, like when I talk to you, when I just sit down and really think about it, it's like, wow, this actually is getting into my brain, like whether I know it or not.
Dude, so impactful. And like, I've had the same thoughts, like when I was in it. At first, I was like super defiant to the idea of therapy. Like, I was like, F this, like, I don't need this. I'll be fine. But then after a while, like, and I didn't even realize the changes were happening. And like, years passed. I saw her for almost all 4 years, despite like, at one point I did a DBT group, so I didn't see her for like half a year. But I'm telling you, like, she was one of the only people who ever was able to talk some sense into me.
Wow.
She, started out super validating, and like, then she started challenging me more. And I was like, wait, she's onto something. Like, I don't want to be stagnant in my life. Like, I don't, want to sulk and just sit in misery. Like, why don't I actually make changes that can, they might be hard and they might be uncomfortable facing your own demons and like accepting your flaws and, your shortcomings. But it's just like, you don't, like, you're just going to be miserable.
Yeah.
And like, obviously I'm not perfect now, but like, I'm able to have more meaningful connections with people. I'm able to better like emotionally regulate and like communicate my needs.
You're very self-aware.
Yeah, but I think I am, but like also, man, that comes with like some downfalls. Like,
oh yeah,
when you're too, you know what I mean? Like, it's just sometimes I wish I could turn that off a little bit, but I don't know. I'm at a point where I'm trying to be generally more like self-accepting in terms of like what I look like, how I act, like my interests, my hobbies, whatever. Like, especially now, like I'm getting back into dating. I'm just like,
I want to talk about that a little bit. That's exciting.
Yeah, so it's exciting and nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've kind of brushed on it in the past on this podcast, but I don't think I've ever done like a full episode about dating when you both have a mental illness, or like, I don't know if that's the case for the person you're dating, but, and that's a whole other episode, but I'm still really curious because I know you're still going through it. Like you said, no one's perfect. And even the last time I talked to you, I think you hadn't even gone on a date with this person. And now it's like a thing.
Exactly. Like, it's hard to gauge, like, how much do you want to tell the person you're seeing? Like, when is the right time to tell them? Because it's a part, like, for me, the eating disorder stuff is a massive part of your life. Like, a big part of dating is socializing through food.
Yeah.
Which is just going to happen in any dating context. You can't avoid it. So that's why, like, I try to be relatively open, but not, like, all of it. Like, I'll just be like, yeah, I struggle with food. Or I have a history of an eating disorder. Like, whatever. If they want to ask questions, like, I'll be happy to talk about it more, but I don't want to overwhelm them. And, like, I know there's also a massive misunderstanding for what an eating disorder is and how it functions. But dating with mental illness is really tricky.
Yeah. Let's jump back a tiny bit. When were you diagnosed with your stuff? Specifically the eating disorder, but you can talk about the other stuff too.
So I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety when I first started going to therapy. So that was my freshman year of college. And I was diagnosed with the eating disorder because I didn't develop it actually until I was like 20, 21. So at that point I was diagnosed with EDNOS, which is eating disorder not otherwise specified. Which turned into anorexia, which then became bulimia at one point, and I kind of just bounce around wherever they decide.
Can I be honest? I think eating disorder labels are dumb. I think, like, I know a lot of people with eating disorders, and so do you, and I feel like none of them fit into those little boxes.
Hell no. We'll talk like, a week prior and then now, and like, last week I was dealing with bulimia, and this week it's just so arbitrary.
Yeah. And if you're seeking help for it, it gets really tricky because they want to categorize you into one or the other before they give you treatment. But I think the treatment model we have is flawed in that, like, it needs to be able to cover more a broader scope, I guess. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to sound smart.
No, that's good as hell. I think within the last couple of years, I've thought a lot about what diagnoses mean to me. Really, I only ever want to be diagnosed if it's to find treatment.
Right.
Like if it's, to figure out how to go. Like, yeah. Otherwise, especially in terms of like mental health diagnoses, like otherwise they're pretty pointless. Like I don't see, the point saying, oh, well, you have EDNOS, not anorexia, because your BMI isn't low enough, but yet you're doing everything that someone who has anorexia is doing, but we're just waiting for your weight to get low enough. What?
I feel conflicted because I think diagnoses can also have the effect of validating people who might have spent their whole life feeling like you did, like you don't know what's wrong with you, you feel fake. But then this is really common in the eating disorder community. You see them take those diagnoses and wear them like a ribbon, like a trophy. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know. Like it can go the opposite way where you're just so focused on being labeled something, you just don't take care of the issue. It's all bullshit.
You're so right. And but also it could flip the other way where it's like if you're diagnosed EDNOS, like, okay, I'm not sick enough for anorexia. Because that was my experience. I was doing everything, like I was restricting really hard. I know my labs were all off. I was fainting and I felt terrible. And they were like, okay, you're EDNOS. And it felt like they brushed it off. Like it was no big deal. And I'm just I just wonder how it would look if I were, 20 pounds underweight or 10 pounds, whatever.
Well,
arbitrary.
And for those who don't know, anorexia, you have to be a certain weight to be diagnosed, right? Like unless they've changed it recently.
Apparently that's changed, but I don't.
Yeah, we're not doctors here, but for a long time anyway, it was like that. So even if you were you were saying passing out and obviously sick, also it shouldn't matter. Who cares? We could talk about this in a circle all day long. Yeah. It's just really frustrating, and I'm sorry you had to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. No, it sucks. A lot of people. My situation is not unique. There's so many other people who are in the same boat, and it's just sad. And there needs to be something done about in terms of finding treatment for someone struggling with an eating disorder. Should be way easier. Because there's so many people too, and I didn't realize before before any of this happened to me, just how many people have eating disorders. Because you really only have the image of the girl who's super underweight.
Yeah,
it's the white woman who is underweight, and that's the only fucking person. And it's just no, that's just But in high school, we were shown all of these stupid videos and stuff about what anorexia looks like, what bulimia looks like. It's just. Twisted.
I still have not found a single movie about bulimia that really captures what it's like to be bulimic. I know there's been a few depictions here and there, but nothing. It doesn't get the same sort of spotlight as anorexia, and that's not to say it's a contest or anything, but it would be really validating sometimes to see that I'm not the only one that struggles with this.
Anorexia is glamorized.
But then you have to be careful of media depictions of that kind of thing too. For me, self-harm, for instance, I found out about it on Tumblr, and eating disorders, I knew about it online. I don't know how your experience was, but I can't imagine being a teenager right now, with the amount of stuff out there.
That's so true. When did it start for you again?
I was 14.
So for me, I was an adult. I was 21. So I feel 14 to 21 was still massively different experiences. Totally.
It's really difficult.
Mm-hmm. It's also normalized what thin underweight bodies look like. People just see them all over the place. Yeah. So it's not.
And it's all the standard's always changing. Right now, being thick is in right now, I guess. I don't know. There's always going to be some unobtainable body standard.
Dude, but I've still been called curvy and thick, being underweight. And I'm just what is real? What is reality?
Oh my God, I saw a post on Facebook my friend Desiree posted. Shout out if you're listening. It said, if we all did the same amount of exercise and ate the same amount of food, our bodies would still all look different. And my mind was blown. I was like, holy shit.
I know, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
I love that post. That was circulating around. It's great. It's so true. Yeah. It's so true.
Speaking of like body perception, I kind of want to talk about your face stuff that you talked about last time. When you reached out to me to be on the podcast, you said you wanted to talk about facial dysmorphia, among other things. So I don't know if you want to kind of give the listeners a brief rundown about what that is and what it looks like for you, because I had never heard of it.
Yeah, so that's why like I wanted to talk about it, is because I feel like it's something that I haven't encountered many people dealing with, although I know it's a thing. For me, it's about symmetry, like, because generally, like, you know, how I am and how I live, like, I'm super organized, super neat, like, it's the way my brain's always been. And it kind of corresponds to, like, how I see myself, too. So I became, like, fixated with symmetry in my face when I was really young, when I was probably, like, 7th grade. I did not like looking at pictures of my face. It scared me. Like, I saw a monster every time. Like, I couldn't handle it. It'd be extremely distressing. So, but at that point, like, I was able to just avoid it. Like, I would just avoid photos. Like, I would be behind the camera. It's not a big deal. But it felt like more in college, and when photos became more of a thing, when people were posting photos all over the place, I became, like, super fixated with it. I'd stare at myself in the mirror, like, think about plastic surgery, think about how, you know, skewed my nose was, just, like, little things like that. But it's not like when you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, you know, my nose is too big, or, like, something like that. It was, like, absolutely obsessive.
Well, that's what I wanted you to differentiate, because I know a lot of people think, like, if you have an eating disorder, you know, you hate your face, you have body dysmorphia, you know, but I think what you have goes beyond that, and
way beyond.
Yeah. So what would you say is the biggest difference?
I would say the differentiation for me was the, like, face checking, what I called it. Like, I would have these thoughts about my face, and I'd have to, like, look in mirrors and, like, check to see, like, nothing looks different, that everything, like, it doesn't make sense rationally, but, like, it became obsessive compulsive, and that was for me the biggest difference than just, you know, and it was a fixation. You would think about it all day, and, like, it would even I would get anxiety if I'm going to a restaurant. I'm like, I have to sit on the right side of someone, like, I have to make sure they're not catching me at a bad angle or something, because they might be afraid of how I look. But that's just so bizarre to think that way. It's just not based in reality. And, like, I know that rationally, and I, you know, especially based on, you know, I've not had trouble dating. It's not like people have called me out, like, oh, what's, you know, I've never gotten bullied, nothing like that. It's just all been fabricated in my head. And it was hard. It was really bad for maybe the first, like, 2-3 years of college, where I was just, I didn't go to class some days. Like, I couldn't look in the mirror. I couldn't be around people. I get really bad social anxiety about it. When, like, you know, and I wouldn't want to talk about it as much with people I knew, because it felt attention seeking. So I would get compliments, and people would be like, no, like, you know, I wish I looked like you. And I'm just like, it's so nice to hear that. But at the same time, I'm just like, but also I wish you could see what I see. Like, it's not mixed
feelings about complimenting people with body dysmorphia or any other type of dysmorphia. I know it comes from a good place. Like, even in the eating disorder community, I feel weird about it sometimes, like, complimenting people's physical features. Because, you know, you'll never feel the way that they do, and, like, your comments could actually be harmful. I don't know.
Right. I had that issue with ex-boyfriends too, where, like, they knew I had an eating disorder, and they would still compliment parts of my body or even bones and, like, stuff like that. And it was a big yikes. And I had to, like, talk to them. I'm just like, maybe compliment, you know, just something general, like, you're beautiful or you're pretty or whatever, like, not specific. Yeah.
You have great taste in memes.
Your memes is perfection. But I feel the same way. It makes me think more about what compliments, like, what I'm really trying to communicate, like, when I'm complimenting someone. It's like, I want to make them feel good, but also I don't want it to be counterproductive, where I'm saying, like, you know, you look beautiful, and then they're translating that as, like, oh, it's only because of, you know, because I didn't eat today or whatever.
Well, you know. When I used to work at Starbucks for a long time, and I would try to have conversations with my customers, and there was a moment when I realized that every compliment I was giving out, like, had to do with like something someone was wearing or like their hair or their nails. And it got really boring. I kind of listened to myself from a different perspective, like every other person. Oh, I like your bag. Oh, I like your nails. I'm like, that sounds robotic. And so I tried to start complimenting other things about them, like their smile or like, I don't know, still having to do with their looks. Like there's only so much you can know about a person when they're in line. But my connections became so much more like valuable and like real.
Yeah. No, things like that seriously matter, because that reminds me, we have a regular who comes into my work. I work as a front desk receptionist, and we have one of our regulars who comes in. He sees this other therapist who's also such a wonderful, kind person. He just said to me one day, he's like, I'm always just so happy when I walk in and you're working here. You have such a warm presence.
Oh my God, my heart.
It was so nice.
Those are the compliments we need more of in the world.
Yeah, those are the compliments that stick. And like, I like got a little, like I teared up a little bit. I'm like, that's just so freaking nice. Like, you don't understand like how impactful that is.
We need to start a movement of like wholesome compliments. I don't know.
Yeah, man. But stuff like that, really sticks with you.
Yeah, going back to the facial stuff, when did you talk to your therapist about it? And like, how did she handle it?
So I didn't talk to her about it until like maybe a couple months before I stopped seeing her, because I was that ashamed of it. I didn't know how to verbalize it at that point. She knew I had like body dysmorphia to some level, but like for some reason the face stuff, like I was like, this is fucking weird. Like nobody has this. Like who is this fixated on their face and certain features? And
you'd looked it up on like Reddit and stuff and you couldn't find much.
Yeah, and I found other people who also were suffering with this too, and I was like, damn, like this is totally a thing, but like how do you verbalize this to someone who hasn't experienced it? They'll just be confused, especially like when I get compliments in real life. I'm like, they just won't believe me. Like they'll just think I'm attention seeking, that I'm which is the worst. And I'm like, I don't, so I just didn't talk about it for a long time. I stopped seeing her. I mean, she was receptive to it, but I didn't talk about it as heavily as I should have. I did kind of briefly talk about it to a therapist I saw via telehealth during quarantine, but she was a very nice lady, but I stopped seeing her because she didn't hold me accountable for anything. Like I was asking to make changes and I told her goals I had, and she wouldn't, follow up with them, and she would just be more of like a friend. And I'm like, I have very lovely friends who would listen to me, but no offense, but like I'm broke and I want to pay you to help me change my life. So like, help me make this. But so anyways, I talked with her about it a bit. She listened, but the facial stuff, it still bothers me today, but like, I kind of am trying to live my life more like accepting that people are going to see me whatever way they want. It's out of my control. Like there's a very small amount that you can control about how someone perceives you, especially physically. So like, I don't really have much of an impact on it. Sure, I can try different makeup. I can do my hair differently. I can wear certain clothes, but like in the end, like I'm trying to just be more of like a genuine person and like focus more on like how I connect with people and how I talk to people and how I communicate like that I care about people. And
you definitely come across that way to me. Like I haven't known you that long, maybe like a year, maybe. I don't know. We met online, and I think it was recently when I was in Virginia when COVID first hit. Like we started video chatting, and I was just blown away right off the bat. Like it felt like you were like a friend I'd known for years. Like you're just you're so open and like chill, and just you exude care, like compassion, and if not confidence, just like self-awareness, I guess. I don't know. I just think you're a beautiful person, and I'll stop right there, but
you're gonna make me cry again.
Oh, well, it's okay, because my kitten looks like he's about to jump on the microphone again. He's sitting watching me, like glowering at me. Like... I want to talk a little bit about romance, because since it's so topical. I mean, I know I always ask people right now during COVID, like, how are you coping? And I think that when you're in a relationship, like, it changes the way you cope with things. And so I wanted to talk about what your experience has been like before and after.
Generally with romance, I don't know, like, what do you, I guess, like...
Well, what's your history been with dating? Like, how has your mental illness played a role in your romantic life?
So I was in a relationship for 5 years, during college, basically all of college. I met him when I first got there. It was extreme codependency at the beginning, which definitely corresponded with how my mental health was. I needed a lot of validation. I was insecure. I was, just stressed out and wanted someone to be there with me at all times so I could feel comfort. And eventually things just got way toxic with us. Like, we would have been better off just being friends the whole time, but it just turned into a lot of fighting. And like, at that point, like I said, my confidence was at an all-time low. So I didn't leave him for a very long time. For years, I stayed, despite us. Like, at that point, we were not sexually active at all. We were basically like roommates, which is just fucking sad.
It's hard to admit that, especially when you're 18, 19, 20. Like, you don't... Yeah. And mentally ill. Like, you can't walk away from that easily. Like, it's really hard to look at the facts.
Yeah, and with the person I was dating too, I mean, I don't really have necessarily any bad blood with him, but I think he was also dealing with his own insecurities, and he made a lot of promises that he thought he could keep, and he kind of abused my patience, which now, like, with dating, I am like, if you do that shit to me, like, I am not doing, like, I'm not playing this game.
Yes.
If you say something, like, you gotta follow through. If you don't, like, I'll maybe give you 1, maybe 2 chances, but, like, I will not waste my time. Like, if you're gonna waste my time like that, then respectfully, like, fuck off.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, that's the point of those bad relationships, right? It's just, what can I learn from them? Like, they happened, we can't change that they happened. But the only thing you can do is not fall into the same traps again, which is way easier said than done.
I know, but it's hard to not go the complete opposite way, too, because now I'm just like, I'm super on edge. Like, if I see red flags, I'm like, like, I'm pumping the brakes.
Or it's like you see what you might think is a red flag, but it's not, but like everything triggers you.
Exactly. So I'm trying to be more, like, the dude I'm seeing right now, he's just told me I told him I'm very type A personality, and he was like, no, you're not. I was like, you don't think I'm type A? He's like, no. I'm like, okay. Because we've been going with the flow. Like, he asked me to be exclusive and all this stuff. And, like, it's chill. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I don't feel as pressured to be like, yeah, let's right away, let's be dating boyfriend, girlfriend. Because that's how it was with past relationships. And I'm like, I don't think I want that. I think I want to feel this out more. Like, I really want to be sure it's the right fit and try to, like, just keep that anxiety at bay if I can. I'm afraid of wasting my time, but then again, like, I'm 25, like, I have the time to date and figure out who's going to be a good match for me. But then again, I don't know what that would even look like.
But also, like, why rush? Even if you weren't 25, like, you should never feel like you should rush into anything.
Exactly. I guess, that makes me worried, though, because I'm dating someone who's a little bit older. So I'm like, maybe, he wants to be... But I'm trying to just go at my own pace.
You're doing the same thing that I do, which is just constantly questioning everything and talking myself into loops and just worrying. Like,
I know.
There's memes where, like, the guy is in bed and the girl's next to him and she has all these thoughts in her head. Like, what's he looking at his phone? Like, oh my God, he's an inch further than normal. He's mad at me. And he's just, like, looking at a meme. He's like, like...
Exactly, and it's nothing.
It's just, I feel like we're the same in that regard. Like, I worry way too much about everything in my relationship, and it just
got worked up, like, over nothing. But I'm trying to, like, see, that's what I'm trying to work on. Like, I'm just trying to be like, no, it really is nothing. Like, why don't I just focus on something else?
Well, he doesn't think you're type A, so I guess you're doing something right.
I know. That's why I'm like, okay, so far so good, but also I want to be authentic.
Right,
like, I have been with him, but he doesn't see it as me being type A, which is kind of nice, because not that I don't necessarily, like, I just feel like there's so many negative connotations with being type A. But I think generally my way of thinking is, like, very structured, but I want to have all of these more spontaneous experiences, which we've been doing. We've been, doing a lot of outdoorsy things, which, we'll have a general plan of like, okay, we're going to do something on Sunday. And that's enough for my brain. Like, I'm like, okay, cool. Whatever it is, we'll go with it. But, I think ideally I'd like to date someone, whether him or whoever, like, who is more relaxed and easygoing. Because it puts me in check and it balances me a little bit. Because I can't have the clash of like someone else who's like, okay, we're going to meticulously plan every fucking thing we're doing this week.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't need that. I
like to be the person that does that. Like, my boyfriend right now is very, very chill and laid back, and he's just like, whatever. And I'm the type of person who can't watch a movie without getting up every 15 minutes. And so, like, it works out. Yeah. But it's nice to have that balance. So, like, how do you maintain that balance right now? Like, and have a healthy boundary there, like especially in the beginning when it's new and you're dealing with your own shit and we have a fucking pandemic on our hands. Like, I'm
still learning.
Yeah.
It's the best answer, because I've dated a few people this past year, and it's hard because the anxiety's gotten the best of me, and people have been not the best choices. So I'm trying to be a little bit more picky now, and I don't know, the whole anxiety part of it though. I'm focused more on like, and of course this is classic what you learn in therapy, like feel the feelings and then just let them pass.
Well, you say that, but it's still kind of radical to me. Like, I just started trying to do that. And I think there's people who are listening who might, like, you never know who's listening,
I'm not saying it's easy by any means. I'm not saying I'm...
Well, not easy, but like, it sounds like a common thing, which I guess it is a common thing. True. I don't know. Maybe I'm just late to the game.
No, you're right, though. So, I mean, that was something specifically for me, like, because how my anxiety, like, manifested. Like, just let the feelings come up, feel them, and acknowledge them, and give them validation. Or, just dismiss them. It depends on the context. But for me, like, this is the most cheesy thing. And if you know me, like, you'd be like, you really do this. But, like, my therapist, just roll with me here. My therapist told me to imagine like it's a cloudy day and you're just looking up at the sky and there's this really big dark cloud and you just watch it drift by. And that's what I do sometimes. Like, I am visual. I'm a very visual person. Same. So like, I'll just picture, okay, like that's a thought. It's in my head. It's going to pass. And then it passes.
Yeah. I think that's incredibly helpful and not cheesy at all. Like, that's what people need. Have you met mentally ill people where we're like very held back? We need all the help we can get.
Truly. But yeah, if that doesn't work, like I will, intentionally, I'll do something really stimulating, like whether it's playing video games or painting or something that'll engage my brain more and like so I can stop fixating. Which honestly, that's been the biggest help with anxiety and thought loops and stuff, is just do something else. Like, if you can, by all means, you can sit in that thought for, minutes, hours, the whole day. Like, it'll take you and it sucks. But it's just like, do I really want this with my day today? Like, is this really how I want to spend my time? This doesn't seem like the most, not even productive. I was going to say productive, but this doesn't seem like the healthiest use of my time right now. So I'll try to do something else. That's why, like I said, like later on tonight, my friend's having like a little bonfire and I'm just like, don't know if I want to go. Like, I'm feeling a little bit down today, but I'm like, I'm going to go.
Sometimes
I'm going to commit to at least. Yeah. Like, if you just say, I'm going to do this thing for an hour or like whatever seems manageable, like I'm going to stop by for 10 minutes even. Like something, and it gets you out of that thought pattern and makes you feel better too. For me personally, at least, like being around people, and especially, when my best friend is going to be there. Nice. So
I'm excited. I hope you have fun.
Yeah, me too.
I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me again. It's
round 2.
I know, round 2. Better than ever.
I know.
We can wrap up, but is there anything else you wanted to add before we say goodbye?
No, I'm just so glad I could be on the show.
Yes. Oh yeah, I've been wanting you on forever, so thank you so much. And I just hope someone can like learn more about themselves by listening to this. Like, I keep saying self-aware, but I just see you that way. And I feel like I learn something whenever I read something you wrote or like talk to you. And I hope someone else can feel the same way. So thank you so much. And my cat says thank you too for providing entertainment.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your night.
You too. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Hey, it's me again. Thanks for listening to this episode of Pickles and Vodka. If you want to keep up with us on social media, our Instagram is at Pickles and Vodka Podcast. We have a Facebook group, facebook.com/Pickles and Vodka Podcast. You can also email us, picklesandvodkapodcast@gmail.com, with your thoughts on the episode, topics you want us to cover, or just to say hi. As always, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.